Hello everybody, and welcome back to the LJL officially unofficial cast. We just saw AXIZ upset or kind of snowball their victory against Rascal Jester. That was honestly a little bit of a surprise in how dominant AXIZ looked throughout a lot of that latter of that game.
Yeah, they were always in control. They had a very strong LeBlanc, winning laning phase, winning lane, poking out around objectives, and the Elise and the LeBlanc kind of just brought them the early game until the point that Hyde, on the misfortune, just started ripping across team fights with Corporal and Unia, and also playing very good secondary carry and peel roles.
Yes.
I hope that we interested to see how that plays out and whether they can kind of continue that structured, clean gameplay into their game up against Crest Gaming that's coming up right now, because that'll be a some tough opposition.
Absolutely. Crest Gaming versus AXIZ is going to be our game 2 for week 3. Let's just kind of think about it. Crest are currently arguably have one of the best mid laners in the LJL. Definitely up for conversation. No questions asked. Where do you see this kind of going? Do you think Arya can really be kind of taken up by Gariaru? Like, that's the matchup. I think that's the lane I'm really interested in watching, personally.
Well, I mean, we haven't seen. Well, I mean, Aria has picked 4 different champions, 4 different games, carried on all of them. So I'm looking for Game 5, Champion 5, and another kind of feather in the hat. Really, that's what I'm thinking right now. But it would be It would be really good to see AXIZ kind of complete this underdog story that we've kind of set up for them, because they did come into this week not looking so great, but it'd be fantastic to see them take some big names.
And it's like, I don't think AXIZ have looked scared in lane, right? Like, even versus DFM, you had Gariadu like picking Tristana and going like ham, like jumping in, trying to kill Seros. Like,
true.
There's definitely there's no timidity there, is how we'll phrase that. Like, they've got some passion there, and I think it'll be interesting to see. I'm kind of curious to see how Hoglet performs. Like, we have highlighted Yoshi in the jungle for CGA as someone who's been a weakness for the team currently. And Hoglet actually had a really good game on the Elise. Found some good cocoons, had a lot of early objective pressure, and if he can kind of keep Yoshi down, whether actually Gariadu and the rest of Axis can do some damage to the CGA.
Yeah, and Crest are on a slight streak going right now. They're definitely looking like they are one of the top teams of the LJL, obviously with Arya and Gango kind of leading the charge on that one. But with that in mind, I think it's about time to just get into the pick and ban phase and just really get into this game that we've got for them. So, I will quickly count us in the old LJL unofficial way, and we'll go from there in 3, 2, 1, and good luck to both teams.
Streams are synced and teams are in Champ Select, so the roster for Crest Gaming Act is Nap in the top lane, Yoshi in the jungle, the man, the myth, the monster, Arya in the mid lane, and Gango and Grendel down in support.
And the victorious Game 1 team on the red side, AXIZ over on the red. In the top lane, Unya, and in the jungle, Hoglet, mid lane, Gadiadu, and the bot lane, Hyde and Corporal as support.
Yes, and we've seen some bans come through pretty thick and fast. It is Syndra and Rumble banned away from AXIZ, of course. Hyde had picked up the Syndra in the bot lane one time. Can understand not wanting to play against that. On the other side, it's Senna and Akali, 2 of those are very high priority picks.
Yeah, and Gango has shown that he can carry and put out some pretty mad damage on the Senna in a couple of the games so far, and the Akali ever present as a ban. And once again, we see a set banned away in the first round of bans.
Yeah, and Elise taken off as well, not wanting to give Yoshi that early pressure. AXIZ used so well in the previous game. It's Aphelios locked in first, though, for Crest Gaming Act, and Gango, of course, is a pretty good Aphelios player.
Yeah, he is. He's played both the Aphelios and the Senna. He's been playing all of these S-tier AD carries. Very quickly locked in response, though, are Thresh and Rek'Sai from the side of AXIZ. Hoglet's played a couple of games of Rek'Sai already. Played 2 in week 1. Didn't go so well, but has shown a propensity for going back to that pick.
And, of course, we're looking around at what's going on with Corporal as well, who's had a very good sort of like Dark Passage usage, particularly the Lantern usage from him, has been really good to keep people safe when they really should have died in other games. But of course, Nautilus drafted for Grendel, so Aphelios Nautilus, one of those very staple bot lane duos, very strong duo, and of course, a serious engagement with Nautilus.
Yeah, and Grendel's been playing pretty well on the Nautilus so far. He's been one of the prime engagers for Crest, trying to land those dredge lines. And it's not champion number 5, it's champion number 4, once again, Aria, having a just a nuts game on that LeBlanc, deathless in his second game of last week.
There was a plaintive cry from my producer who was disappointed not to see a new champion, but I can't be sad that we're seeing Arya on LeBlanc. He had an amazing game the first time we pulled it out, but Gary Aru has responded with Lysandra, an old school matchup into LeBlanc.
Yeah, you can punch the LeBlanc by using your Ring of Frost, your W to root the LeBlanc as she distorts into you, and then try and trade back onto that champion. So yeah, it does allow you a couple of ways in.
Is that a familiar drinking game? For the
Ring of Frost?
Yeah.
Oh, as opposed to Ring of Fire.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
Lee Sin and Misfortune.
We like to play some mental problem solving. We like to play some problem solving games here. Like he throws out a random statement, I wonder what it is, and then we kind of muddle our way to the conclusion.
I think in convoluted and mysterious ways.
I think
as a play-by-play caster, no less, which probably not a good sign. Jarvan Lee Sin is off the board for Yoshi, though. So that's actually 3 junglers now banned.
Well, that is quite, these are kind of the early game S-tier junglers. We've kind of seen that Lee Sin, Jarvan, Elise, and Rex are kind of hanging around there. But, Gragas is still up and available. We've talked a little bit about that on our podcast. That's plug number 4, which I think is a very important...
Jinx! Yes! Jinx. So excited to see that. And with the Thresh there, with the Lantern, that immobile carry can be kept a little bit safer too.
Sure, but now we're going to have to see whether Jinx can be kept safe from the Nautilus and the LeBlanc. You still get hit by the Nautilus ult regardless of where you travel with that Lantern. CGA hovering some dog champs, all of the classics.
The Knight of Demacia being thought of there, but it is a Cho'Gath lock in. That Jinx needs to be exceptionally careful now because a flash feast would be the end of a very squishy Jinx's life.
Right, so we're going to have to see what's locked in the top lane for AXZ and Respawn. It's actually the Trundle locked in for Yoshi in the jungle.
We've seen a little bit out of the LJL
Steel,
middling effect. Of course, Smithy picked it up over in NA once or twice as well. Just once.
So if AXZ really want to pick this gangplank here, I think they're actually counter-picking themselves. I really don't like that pick into Cho'Gath. It is actually picked.
Okay.
This is risky as all hell because Cho'Gath can dive the gangplank later into the game with massive amounts of HP, and that feast just kind of wrecking the poor pirate.
Yeah, you might be able to eat the orange, and that's okay. But if Cho'Gath eats Gangplank, he gets the orange too, and he's certainly more than okay. So, addition to that feast,
that's how Cho'Gath gets his vitamins as a predator, right? Like he
vitamin C from eating the oranges along with Gangplank.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, he's just got to make sure he's living a healthy lifestyle, just consuming all of these various different champions. So we see
it's a pirate's life for me, quite literally eaten away.
Yeah, okay, so AXIZ locking in the new champions for the split of Jinx and Lysandra, once again showing that they do kind of work on a separate meta from the rest of the LJL. Hasn't really worked for them up until last game. They've had some very interesting drafts besides that, though. So even though they do have a bit of a poor standing, I think it's very interesting what they've managed to bring out. So yeah, kind of loading back into this game. We see a couple more of the S-tier picks on the side of CGA, though. The LeBlanc and the Aphelios prime carries for our prime carry players.
Indeed. I'm curious how this matchup's actually going to go, because we kind of have a fair amount of history, well, like a lot of history with Lysandra and LeBlanc. Lysandra has her ways to outplay the LeBlanc, and obviously that's a fair amount of that is more engaged, right? That we have been cautious about Rek'Sai in the jungle because of the limited engage that champion does bring with that flash. But now you brought in Lysandra, that suddenly means there's a lot more ways for a team to start a fight. But I'm again very nervous about whether this Jinx can stay alive versus all of the damage and all of the pick coming in from CGA.
Yeah, and while Lysandra has been falling out of meta, I think when you do pair it up with the Cannon Barrage and the Super Mega Death Rocket from the Jinx, 2 global ultimates, if you can lock people and place the Ring of Frost into your Frozen Tomb, or whatever the Lysandra ultimate is called. Frozen Tomb, yeah, I think that is called that, yes. It's Glacial Prison, Frozen Tomb.
Yes.
Very, very easy to get those mixed up.
Sejuani, I believe, is the Glacial Prison.
So there's a... Yes, Glacial Prison as well. There's Yeah, so there's a lot of setup for these global ultimates, which do a lot of damage. So perhaps they can try and get those Lysandra passive, the little white walker, the frozen walker thingies coming out of Lysandra's passive, trying to run over a team fight. But trying to do that against a Cho'Gath, a Trundle, and a Nautilus is fairly difficult. I think they would need to wait until the later parts of the game until they really start blowing apart team fights. So I think CGA do have better options into the early game before that damage starts coming through.
If the Lantern is ever down as well, that Trundle pillar could be really difficult for Jinx to navigate as well. Obviously, has no way of getting over that terrain. So
Well, also-
that pillar probably a little bit higher in priority than it would be against some other AD carries.
And also, so Gadiario on this Lysandra, it's worth noting that one of the reasons that Lysandra isn't picked so much is that the Q early cooldown is very long now. It's one of the nerfs, means that you can't push in quite as easily or push in at all, really, which means that if you are trying to get priority, it is that much harder, even though you do have a good individual matchup against the LeBlanc.
Yeah, but of course, with the bans in jungle having come through and Yoshi having defaulted to a Nautilus, not the scariest early ganker, so maybe not the worst thing to have, like, less of a push advantage. But actually, it's a good early play from Corporal, who started at level 1.
Yeah, well, they just managed to kill most of the wave there. Weren't really afraid of the minions trading back onto them. Grendel actually starting with the shield on the W for Nautilus level 1 as opposed to the hook.
Allows for a little bit more auto-attack supportal combat between himself and Corporal. But Gango takes the worst end of that health trade. I'm not sure whether he has a pot left. He's going to use the Severum instead of the healing.
He's got his own little inbuilt lifesteal thingy.
Because, of course, Aphelios does, along with apparently every other mechanic in League of Legends, outside of a silence.
Yeah, he doesn't get to throw sleepy trouble bubbles. That's one thing which I'm very happy about.
Oh, could you imagine? Calibrum now shoots sleepy trouble bubbles.
I'd rather not.
There you go.
I would like to wake up from this dream, this nightmare.
And that would indeed be a nightmare. But alas, or perhaps fortunately not alas, that is not the case.
Yeah.
The Riot's benevolent design team was not foisted that upon us.
Yeah.
But we're looking at a early kind of contest where it's pretty much in the middle of the lanes, apart from in this bot side where Hyde and Corporal have actually done a pretty good job of shoving in early.
They have, and that's mainly because of Corporal's early pressure on this Thrash, meaning that Jinx can walk up and rocket the wave a fair bit. And something which we will have to focus on is that, so there are ways for LeBlanc to absolutely outplay the Lysandra as well. If you land the chain while Lysandra is taking the E, a lot of the time you actually, you can't wait until the E gets out of range of the chain and then it procs and then you can't take the E anyway. So, yeah, we see a good trade there, actually. Arya, I like that because it means that you're not actually just jumping into the Lysandra to kind of wait for that Ring of Frost to come down. It's just Hoglet waiting around.
Missing the death sentence, though, is Corporal, and that might encourage Gango and Grendel to step forward, but no, Hoglet backs away. Not going to try and dive that lane at the minute. Might probably be a bit of a risk anyway with the cleanse available from Gango.
Yeah, a little bit. Okay. So we kind of see that these lanes are settling into their push priority states. We see Cho'Gath pushing into the Gangplank. Gangplank's still pretty happy to farm under turret there. We see Aria once again trading pretty well onto Gadiario. We do see the Aftershock still on this Lysandra. So Aftershock was definitely nerfed for this champion in particular over the preseason. It means that you get less flat resist rune from that rune choice, but you do get more scaling resist the more resist that you have yourself. So better for the likes of your Leona.
All right,
Not
Yoshi
so good
here, but the Calibrum Q does miss, but that does land to Corporal, who does flay away Grendel, but has to flash out of that Trundle. But that's a good, grabbed him off, but as he has to use the fantastically swift cleanse and flash burn from Corporal, but cleanse burn from Gango.
Yeah.
Worthwhile trade probably for Crest Gaming App, but if Corporal can land that hook, things could get really dicey for that Aphelios.
Yeah, so what we might see now is that because level 6 is coming up for Lysandra, it does have the teleport available as well.
Misses the dredge line, does Grendel.
Yeah, there is actually a ward in the bush in the bot lane here, so we might see Gadiario try and make a teleport play bot lane as soon as they hit level 6.
That's
that could
a
be
really good
that,
thought.
That could be where this cleanse being down becomes very important. But obviously,
walking over the ward here, and actually, if Grendel's out there, actually we could see a really swift TP, and just teleporting back.
He does have the flash available to him still, so it would have to be a flash follow from Gadiario if he does get over a wall or something like that. And Hyde is still pretty low HP here.
Yeah, that might be another reason why they're not thinking about it again. That's another dredge line that lands in, but the death sentence in return. Grendel takes a lot of damage, so does Corporal. The heal comes through, it's not going to be enough flash forward, but this Jinx is now excited and trading back with Gravitums here. Going to be a lot of roots available, not going to be able to get that back, but it is, in the end, a 1-for-1. Actually, Thrash's Ignite picks that one up. That's going to be a real frustration, but Hoglet's here, and Gango just flashed in for that kill. He could be in a lot of trouble. Hoglet has flash, Gango does not, and there is no Gravitum. It's a teleport coming in, but it's going to be too little, too late, and that's a kill kill for Hoglet, but Arya is here on this LeBlanc. Hyde is very low, flashing forwards, but Hyde returns the favor. Yoshi here as well, and I think that's going to be the end of it.
Yeah, good flash away from Hyde there to escape the LeBlanc. Uses all of the rotation missing onto the Jinx, means that Arya doesn't get to pick anything up. Doesn't have the level 6 either for that extra mimic ability as well. It's a good pickup by AXIZ in this early game, which gets them up to a 500 gold lead. Kill participation onto Hoglet as well for that kill onto Gango.
Yes, that does also give some of this scuttle grab pressure to Hoglet, and it's an Infernal Drake first. It means that he'll be the only one on this in this game, but it's still a worthwhile Drake, even if the percentages you're gaining in terms of your AD and AP are about literally halved per Drake.
Yeah, I mean, like
from last season.
Everyone but Corporal likes those stats. Particularly the Lysandra doesn't necessarily have the highest AP scalings, but does like to do a lot of that damage. Well, it looks like it's going to be the Protobelt out of Gadearu first. That's what we saw this time last year as well. Although we could have also seen something like a Ludens as well.
Yeah, and actually, all said and done, it's 2-1 for AXIZ, who have got both kills now in the bot side. Got one onto each member there, but we're seeing them start up this Infernal Drake. And Yoshi is not around to contest. He's over by his grump.
Yeah. And what's actually different this game is, so we saw the last game, Gadearu taking the Ignite onto the LeBlanc when he played it. Arya has taken the Teleport this game. I think that when you're against the Lysandra, being able to just ult herself and recover a lot of that HP and kind of stop a lot of that kill pressure, the Ignite does lose a lot of value, as opposed to against the Silas matchup last time, where you can, reduce that Kingslayer healing quite significantly.
We're looking at a 10 CS-ish lead for this Jinx down the bot lane, probably as a result of Gango having been forced out a little bit. We are seeing them go in. That's distorted away. That means that's not that's a great chain back. And Yoshi is here. That's a lot of damage now to Guerrero, who doesn't have the W available. Don't know it has to flash away. Does the Lysandra. Doesn't use the ultimate though.
Yeah,
well, that's a nice counter gank in from the Trundle.
So the thing about using your ultimate as Lysandra is that it keeps you in place.
Up, and he's being slowed as Zuinyan, and of course Nap does have the feast, but no, end of that.
Yeah, so when you ult yourself, you're obviously locked in place, and that's not fantastic when you're already on the back foot as well. It means that probably Hoglet would have had to leave the Lysandra to die there, so I think committing the flash there is good. The E cooldown very long, and very well played by CGA to punish that cooldown.
Yeah, level 6 is starting to come through in this bot side. Both ticked over for Hyde and Corporal.
Yeah.
And they're fairly impactful ones. The Super Mega Death Rocket, of course, is tried and true, long range execute, and that is always a pleasure, especially when you double that up with something like a Cannon Barrage.
Yeah, absolutely. And the setup from the Lysandra ultimate as well. That's what we were saying in Champion Select.
But of course, it is the Moonlight Vigil over for the Aphelios, and with all its myriad different permutations. Which is a bit of a nightmare to track, let's be completely honest. Sure. I'm going to try my very best, but I'm but a poor caster from a poor family. Spare me my Aphelios casting from this monstrosity of a champion.
I appreciate the effort. Let it be known I appreciate the effort. As actually we see that this wave is in a really bad spot for CGA right now. Gango just farming with the long-range Q from Calibrum there.
Yeah, he's got Crescendum as his second one as well, which is a bit of an awkward one when he does need to be in close range to get the most out of that gun.
Yeah, absolutely. So we see Gadearu actually in a pretty awkward spot as well. Basically, when these lanes are frozen against them, when you have these CC laners setting up for the jungles, you have to be pretty worried. We saw that there with the Thresh kind of waiting in the wings there, waiting for Gango to walk up, see if he'd fall prey to that minion wave. And then, obviously, with Gadearu and Hoglet in the river, be able to clean up some kills. And then we saw on the return, Arya just freezing the wave and making sure that Gadearu lost a bit of CS and was a bit afraid of an incoming Yoshi as well. Who actually, Yoshi has had a pretty stable early game this time, as opposed to some of his Lee Sin games. So this has been quite a good game from Yoshi so far.
Down a little bit of CS, but we're seeing a Rift Herald start by CJ, but AXZ is thinking to contest it a little bit late though, and that's picked up now by Yoshi.
That's one of the other bonuses of the Cho'Gath. You get to feast these neutral objectives, and it gives you stacks as well towards your stacking
CS up as well on this game plan.
Yeah, so so Cho'Gath does have the ability to kind of like threaten the gangplank with the Q knockup into some other combos as well.
Good knockup as well, and incoming Vorpal spikes. No use of the Feral Scream yet. Just another bit more pressure. I kind of enjoy the mech. What's the mech? Like Battlecast. Thank you. Battlecast Cho'Gath. The fact that he's silenced with the giant boombox shoulders. That's kind of entertaining.
I mean, there are a lot of interesting Cho'Gath skins as well. I actually really like the Darkstar Cho'Gath. That was a charity skin as well. Went towards so I think it was a health charity. I'm trying to.
It's kind of-
I think it was a medical charity. I can't remember exactly which one, but it was going towards a good cause. We do
It-
like to see that from our gaming companies.
Interstellar Terrors are pretty good. That's another good
Ooh,
chain
good
from Ari,
choice,
who's actually
yeah.
been playing this matchup fairly well in terms of like knowing how to use the chains and focus on the chains over the distorts, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
we're not seeing
Yeah.
the Ring of Frost, rather.
Punishing the LeBlanc.
punishing, yeah,
Although we do
exactly.
see the Merc Treads out of Area
No,
first.
nice
Ooh,
double
good
there. That's
trade.
good damage. And Grendel's so much damage. Just go straight
Oh,
down.
wow.
That's so big from Axis. And actually, Garrios has got the Ring of Frost. And that's so much damage onto Arya, who's in a lot of trouble, having to try and run away here. But that's an executing for
Oh.
Hoglet as well. That's 2 for none out of nowhere for Axis.
Yeah, and that's 3 ultimates committed to killing our week 1, week 2 superstar, Aria, who does go down to the duo of Hoglet and Gadio with a bit of help from Hyde's ultimate as well. And that's 2 very quick kills in from the side of AXIZ, who are once again having a pretty good early
they
game.
are. Like, I was not expecting Grendel to just disappear there, but of course, because he couldn't proc his Aftershock, the death sentence into the Flame Chompers,
Yep.
into the Flame, and he was there long enough that the damage that came through from Jinx and the Cannon Barrage was more than enough to claim that kill.
Yes, it was. So, I wonder which replay we're going to get. We're going to get Grendel's death first. So we see CGA walking into the river in Force Corporal. Blind hook onto the traps, into the box as well. Both of these things doing quite a lot of damage. Actually, the Nautilus ult did come through to proc that Aftershock, but the damage had already been done by that point. So, an important thing about this interaction here, as we see Arya getting hit by pretty much everything, is that Lyssandra's ultimate actually stops dashes midway. So if you buffer the cast and then so during the animation, LeBlanc starts to dash. It does freeze the LeBlanc in place, and that's what we saw there. Didn't manage to get any of that extra distance there.
Distorting the distort, so to speak. And we're looking at the Ocean Drake being live and CJ wanting to contest. Tired of being bullied around by Axis in the early game, who have picked up about 1,000 gold lead, even if CS isn't necessarily in their favor, particularly in that top side.
Yeah, but we do have a teleport available from Nap on the Cho'Gath. As we see, Unyan doesn't have the Cannon Barrage for this next fight should the Dragon be contested. So I think advantage probably has to go to CGA with the Righteous Glory already completed on Cho'Gath, probably being able to get on top of that first carrion, or if not, just chomp down the Dragon instead.
Have to be careful to access walking across vision of CGA. Yoshi and Grendel are here. And we're looking at LeBlanc in there as well, but so is Galliardo, who finds himself a nice little bush to camp out in. An area has already been suspect. That's another good hook into Flame Chomper combo. Yoshi flashing away, but Hoglet has gone in as well. He's been
Yoshi's
back,
alive!
and Yoshi is alive. So is Gango, who's doing so much damage in this background. And look at Ari on this side. Gary, who trying to find his way in, does get forced to stopwatch, but it's double stopwatch now. And that's actually Corporal claiming the kill of Grendel there. But Aria double distorts forwards, does a fair amount of damage. But look at Hyde's damage over this wall. Uinyan goes down as well. It's a 2 for 2, but Hyde is free firing and so excited. Yoshi running for his life in and out of vision, but that's a penalty that doesn't work out. And suddenly Hyde is here. Has he got the zap? Has he got the mana for it? He misses.
Oh, and what a messy fight from both sides here. I think that's actually a 1 for 2 for the side of CGA there. They get the kill onto Unyan, but lose Gango and Nap for the price of it. That was just another great showing from Corporal in this fight. Lands the first hook onto Yoshi, who does manage to survive, but the chunk has already been done. So what we see here, Corporal sitting with vision, but out of vision himself. Yeah, another flay onto the Flame Chompers, but Yoshi somehow survives this, but the damage is kind of already been done. You don't get to have this Trundle disrupting the rest of the fight, and Lysandra and GP get in for a lot of AoE damage here. Grendel with a good stopwatch to stop himself going down at the start of this, but Hyde is already getting excited. Got the extra attack speed, getting a lethal tempo proc as well, just doing so much damage compared to compared to Gango, who's already gone down in this fight. Corporal, I appreciate the style points on the flash hook. Doesn't land it, though. And then we see this extended chase down, which just ends up with Yoshi escaping.
He sees him in there and he beats him with that. That's clever stuff from Yoshi. Yeah. Well passed. 3 for 2 in the end. It was a 2 for 3 rather in the end.
Yeah, okay. Right. And you know at the end of that, Dragon doesn't even go down.
No, it's still up. And that means we can see round 2. Axis came out on top of that one, but it's still only about 1,000 gold lead. And Arya has picked up his first kill, has got himself 2 stacks on that Dark Seal. We saw him go Medjai's in the last time he picked that LeBlanc up. And we're looking at CGA here and ready to start once again. Yeah, but there's a lot of summoners that are not available anymore.
I don't think you go Medjai's this game when you're against the Lysandra.
Nope, bad idea.
And a lot of just the ability to blow you up as the first death that he had in this game with just so many ultimates committed. Okay.
Cho'Gath does claim it, but the cannon barrage is down. Uinyan is off to the side, but it's taking a lot of damage in from Arya. But somehow, somewhere, we're seeing another fight. But Jinx is caught in the backline, deleted by Grendel. Garriar is really low as well. Gango flashing away, has got the great Moonlight Vigil and all the good
the
separate
chakrams.
healing, but it's not enough. But look at that backside as well. We're seeing Corporal surrounded by two, trying to hook his way out. That's really clever, buddy. But I don't think it's going to be enough because it's a knock-up from the Cho'Gath, and Arya cleans that kill up. Style points, my friend, but not enough. But look, it's a 3 for 3 by the time that was all well
it's
and
a
done.
3 for 3, but again, it's another stack onto the Cho'Gath who manages to chomp down on the dragon. It's another kill onto the LeBlanc as well, and just a really messy fight. So we see at the start of this, CGA find their way onto the dragon first. Cannon Barrage doesn't really get too much done here, although Lysandra does get a pretty good initial engagement. Jinx is CC'd by her own W animation. Gango puts down the turret from his chakrams and then just wails upon the Jinx. Manages to take down Gladiator as well. Some fantastic micro play from Gango here on the Aphelios, but does get cleaned up himself by the end of that. And then we see Corporal with some smooth moves with the hooks, but does get caught out by the Rupture from Cho'Gath at the end of that play as well.
Like, we've been praising Corporal quietly over the last few weeks, actually.
Pretty good, actually.
And this day particularly, that has been pretty spectacular stuff from this AXIZ support. I have been well impressed. He was great in the last game, great Brawl Roam early on to get the first blood, and a great Thresh game thus far for AXIZ. But CGA back up and around this Rift Herald and are very much in this game, so it's still only about a 1,000 gold lead, and everything is to play for. And look at where those kills are distributed. It's a very strong gangplank at 3-3 with the Trinity Force and the BF sword. Yeah, but it's Arya and Gango with kills on the other side.
Yeah, in any other matchup, this Gangplank would be able to have the run of the map. But when you're against a Cho'Gath, with someone like a LeBlanc being able to run to your lane as well, you really are still afraid whenever they show on the map. We do see Hoglet going towards the bot side, though, and maybe taking down this inner turret on the bot side of CGA.
Yeah, about to say, look at Yoshi summoning the Rift Herald topside to try and compete, but Hoglet with the Hellblade is pretty strong and has got his Warrior Enchant alongside a Phage. Really helpful at speeding up that turret damage alongside the Gangplank, but it is a big stack in the top side now for CGA, but it's a roam up from the bot lane of AXIZ to at least contest in even numbers on this
so there's no teleport available from Nap. There is one available from Arya, and there is the Cannon Barrage available for this Gangplank. Gango might get caught out by Gladiator here.
He has got the cleanse, but I don't think he necessarily want to burn straight away. Just takes half HP on this top tier 2 instead.
Yeah, and that's pretty decent. Like, it is a trade of 1-for-1 trade in terms of towers, and also the extra chunk onto the top lane in a tower of AXIZ. So we are left with a 2k gold lead for AXIZ. We are left with even dragons, 1 Infernal to 1 Ocean Drake for the two teams. And it's a relatively even game outside of that as well.
It's 2k advantage for AXIZ, but we've said how at this point in the game, that doesn't mean that much. It's not like there's 2k at 10, this is 2k coming up towards 20 minutes. So it's still a very close game, but I kind of want to take a step back and say this is much, much better from AXIZ.
Yeah.
Like, their weeks 1 and 2 were frankly fairly poor. And it's been so good to see them come in and compete against some of the teams we thought would actually be really good. Crest Gaming Act are 3-1, looked stellar in their week 2. We saw Rascal Jester, even when they had lost a couple games in their 1 and 3 overall record, look pretty good against some very strong teams. And it's fantastic to see AXIZ with these kind of out-of-the-box drafts looking good.
Remember that CGA, the one game they lost was against Rascal Jester.
Right.
And AXIZ just took that scalp themselves.
Grendel
being caught
again is getting rooted by the Ring of Frost. That's a flash forward from Hoglet, but Grendel with the stone bait's not enough because the Super Mega Death Rocket comes through. 2, 1, and 7 for this Jinx.
It's dangerous to go alone, Grendel. You gotta have to take a friend with you. This time doesn't. Ends up paying with his life. Gone 1 and 5 on this Nautilus.
Yeah.
It's not a great showing in terms of the KDA, but also when you're trying to play around vision control, which is something that we had harped on about in regards to AXIZ and also some other teams around the league as well. You know, you do need to you have to face check at some point of the game. Grendel has just been very consistently punished by Corporal on this Thresh, and this time by Gladiator and the rest of the team.
Yeah, and like, even in their victory over Burning Core, it was Grendel who was kind of the recipient of a lot of deaths in that game as well, who went like 0, 7, and 12. So, and that was on the Nautilus again. So this has been a couple games now, even when CGA are doing well, this guy has got a fairly high death rate. And I grant you, that might be because he is the primary tank, the primary engaged, and that comes somewhat with the territory, but you can't be giving away free kills, especially not to a Jinx that has now got a rapid fire cannon as well to stand even further back.
Yeah, and Gretel's actually walking pretty far up again there. Every time Corporal sat in a bush out of vision, I'm like, this could be death number 6 for Grendel coming up. But we do see the dragon spawning. We see that Aria has teleport available, just pushing in the top lane. Did have the chunk onto the top lane inner, as we were saying, from that Herald push. Gango has the Crescendum to set up turrets if he wants to try and get some priority around this dragon.
He's gone for the Hurricane second, actually, but Hoglet's going. I mean, it's a double teleport now in, but that's a great pillar to stop that engage. But the teleports have now been burned, both down, but they're going to try and contest for this Mountain Drake. They thought that was going to be a significantly harder engage, but well stunted by the Trundle Pillar.
Yeah, the Trundle Pillar stops the actual immediate knock-up from the Rek'Sai coming in.
Keep an eye on this Lissandra on the side. Aria's off to one side as well, takes a lot of damage, but this is a massive area effect damage. So much damage. Gango is just slaying Hoglet straight out, and so is Corporal now down. But Yoshi has to stop, which Hyde is here doing so much damage, but stuck in so much trouble and goes down as well. But some way, somehow, actually, 3 people have gone down. It is those shadows, those wraiths are doing so much damage, and Unyan has somehow, some way survived as well. How on earth did that turn around? It looked like CGA had won that so well, but the Lissandra passive comes in clutch.
Yeah, and it is actually just the 2 carries of CGA surviving at the end of that. It is once again a 3 for 3, but importantly, the AD carry of CGA Gango survives to be able to push down and chunk out this mid lane tower.
But Uinyam, with all the damage he needs, 5-1 and 5 with a Trinity Force Essence Reaver, cleans out the wave. Should be able to defend this tower, you think. But there's 2 people here. Ouch, says that Barrel. But there's a teleport coming in. Maybe he's going to try and contest here. At least go towards this Drake. Nope, end of that. Just Lissandra back out on the map.
Yeah, so obviously the 2 teleports committed at the start of that play for CGA. It does mean that the teleports committed now from AXIZ will buy them this Mountain Drake, I have to imagine.
Yes, that will be a Mountain Drake taken for AXIZ on this Mountain Rift, as we should probably have announced a little earlier. But where does that leave us in this game, actually, as we go into this replay? Let's talk about after
So, CGA once again find themselves on the dragon at the start of this play. Gadiaru with a good position in to try and get an AoE teamfight. Comes in with a 3-man W, a lot of damage from the Q as well, and then just immediately into the ult. Gango does manage to blow up the Rek'Sai and Corporal at the start of this fight with a good Moonlight Vigil. Aria jumps in to get the burst onto Hyde to stop that Get Excited really affecting the team fight. But at that point, Unyan, Gadiaru, and Hyde had done enough damage to the front line that, the supporting cast of CGA to turn around that fight with the passive from Lissandra.
I have to say, I thought CGA had that after that amazing wombo in the middle of that with Nap's knock-up and Grendel getting in there. But as you said, it was a lot of damage coming in from Hyde and Unyan, actually, specifically on that gangplank. Doing a lot of work there.
Yeah, and I have to say Yoshi on this Trundle is surviving longer than I expected him to, but he's still not as tanky as he needs to be to really survive through this front-loaded.
To subjugate off those resistances.
Well, he has the aftershock targets after they've popped them. That's effectively it. So if Gadiato comes in with a Ring of Frost and then immediately uses the ultimate, the subjugate onto the Lissandra, as soon as the aftershock falls off for that champion, will be very squishy.
Another engage. Hoglet's gone onto Yoshi, and he's just gone. Super Mega Death Rocket comes through, and the jungler is dead, and Baron is up, ladies and gents. Maybe we'll see them go for it, but no.
Okay.
End of that. Great straight pick.
So the problem is, when you're actually ulted by Lissandra first, you don't have time to cast your ultimate as the Trundle, and you die very quickly. But it is 3 ultimates committed from the side of AXIZ, so I'm not sure they will head over to the side of this Baron, just because they don't have so many tools left to fight with right now. 15
kills to 9 and a 3k gold lead. Maybe not what you'd expect with that big a kill lead, but actually there's been some fantastic picks from AXIZ this game.
But every time they're grouping up for these ultimates here, they're losing waves in side lanes for the likes of Aria, who is now 30 CS up on, 35 CS up on Gadiaru here, and going to continue to grow that CS lead as well. Has the teleport, obviously, as we were saying, down right now. Doing pretty well. We also see a small CS lead in the bot lane, which will probably even up as the waves come through, and a slight CS lead in the top lane as well.
We're seeing the team fight of AXIZ kind of come out, if not on top, then at least even, and CGA are kind of trying to respond by splitting the map apart, using the double teleport pressure they have, even if that is versus the GP and the Lissandra. I would kind of give the pressure in the 1v1s to LeBlanc and Cho'Gath, I think.
Well, I think that's because they. I think Steel. Well, no, it's not Steel. Okay, I see the Trundle. And I think Steel. So another thing to be interested in here. It's not Predator Trundle. We should have mentioned that a little bit earlier.
Of course,
It's
it's
Press the Attack Trundle, which means that you don't have that same ability to run across the map and try and shut down a side lane as you could do with that Predator. But also, it does mean that in the team fights, if you manage to like auto Q auto, you get that exposure damage for the rest of your team onto that frontline target that you want to blow up. So it gives you some extra ability to duel.
Yeah, and we'll see whether he can pull off. Does have a stone plate complete now, so maybe has a little bit more utility as a front line. As there's the Warmogs and the Negatron cloak in for Cho'Gath, who's tired of taking inordinate amounts of damage from this Lysandra.
Yeah, and these Lysandra passives are actually proving so impactful in these team fights. We see Galio sitting at 2-1 and 10 right now, has the Ludens and the Proto Belt completed alongside the stopwatch, which will soon build into the Zonya. So Galliardo is at his point of power, has that 40% CDR. I think you do go the Transcendence rune on the secondary. So you're at your full CDR mark. You have a lot of extra base damage from those 2 burst items available to you. And we see a 4-man stack from the side of CGA.
Just trying to contest the vision, and they're doing it as a group this time. No more of Grendel wandering in alone and getting himself picked off. I wonder whether we'll see the old school Lysandra double stopwatch build where you complete the Zonyas alongside having a stopwatch.
Well, I think that if they don't fight before the stopwatch is used and it builds up to the Zonyas, I think that's very important, right? Because actually we have seen Galliardo die at the end of a couple of these fights as well, because unfortunately the truth of Lysandra is that you do actually have to go melee at some point for your ultimate and the W.
But you can kind of run kind of pseudo tank just by the fact you can be invulnerable for so long. But we're seeing a Baron start here. Hoglet's in behind, does get pillared. They know
take this down
but
quick.
It's taking it so much damage. You're right, that's a crescendum start there. But that's a good gangplank ultimate. But Cho'Gath is tanky, and that's a depth charge now onto Galliardo, who is knocked up, takes a fair amount of damage in response. Hoglet just shy of that dredge line. But we're looking at that's a fantastic ring of frost. And Uyan destroys Grendel, and Yoshi is taking so much damage as well. That's 2 for none currently. Nappa's stopwatch, but he's stuck in there and is dead to Galliardo. That is 3 for none. And AXIZ are now on Baron, and they have only got Gango with no summoners and Arya there to contest.
Huge engage by Galliardo. Gets everyone in the choke point with the CC of Lysandra. Doesn't even need to use the stopwatch at the end of that. What a fantastic turnaround from AXIZ. They now find themselves at a 5k gold lead. They find themselves with the Baron. They're going to reset. At least CGA get themselves their first mountain of the game, but they're really licking their wounds after that.
And what a play from AXIZ. What a turnaround of fortunes. This is so much better. Where is this AXIZ in the first 2 weeks?
So, going back to the replay here, we see that Gango is actually knocked up in the middle of the Death's Daughter from the gangplank. There's a hook which lands onto Nap. Yoshi's already chunked out by this point, and they've used 2 of their big ultimates already. Grendel also gets hit by a pretty big barrel as well. 3-man flash W from Galliardo, then ults as well for this big wombo combo there. And at this point, like when they're all grouped up in melee range of each other, Adia and Gango just haven't found the routes into that team fight to have some damage
just
later.
teleported in. I thought Grendel was going to think about going for that, but no, Hoglet and Hyde and Corporal all there to support. And the push begins. 4 turrets to 2. Arya's diving over the wall, desperately trying to find some way to commit to damage. Has pretty close to completing the death cap, which might be some damage. But that glacial path forcing away the
Hyde's excited too.
LeBlanc. And yes, Hyde has taken that top turret.
No, I just took the mid turret.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I'm with you. I was like wondering what you were saying. I was like, yeah, I'm going to agree with you.
Yeah, no, just gets excited off tower kills, obviously. Actually, the thing about Jinx is that you do get excited off of big objective kills as well. So if you take a dragon or a baron or a herald or anything like that, you do get that passive active.
4-1 split. Commences Uyan taking this top tier 3 very swiftly. Arya has found himself overall off vision. Can he find his way onto a very low health?
Hoglet is low.
He's taking a lot of damage. Is that Rek'Sai rather?
Flash from Grendel.
And that's a good hook. And Corporal's going to get blown up. That's gone down. And that's
food.
a nice diffusal of the pressure coming in. The inhibitor hasn't gone down either, is worth saying. Base is broken, but not completely.
And Grendel says, you've been hooking me all game. Now it's my turn. Flashes for the hook onto Corporal, who tried to use that flay to deny LeBlanc the poke onto Hoglet just with that earlier poke trade. Then has no way to peel for himself. No flash either. It's a good kill, as you said, to diffuse this Baron push.
Yeah, and that's some good stuff in from Grendel, who's been caught out a few times, but has now landed a couple key hooks there. It is a 7,000 gold lead, let's call it. And that's a big lead for AXIZ, but...
It is, and it's also like a 3.5k Baron power play as well. That's a
massive,
lot of advantages coming out of that Baron.
And let's just check in on this Gangplank, who is 6-1 and 700 gold bounty, and has 3 items complete. We said that maybe this Gangplank was going to struggle in the matchup versus the Cho'Gath. That hasn't proven to be true, really, outside of an early CS deficit. And this Gangplank is such a carry threat now.
Yeah, in these team fights, the Gangplank's been finding a lot of damage. The ultimate has been pretty effective in the last couple as well. But actually, one thing which is the scary thing, I guess, for AXZ. Yes, that is pretty nasty. That'll be the team fight followed by the Baron. Just that massive gold just slope going towards AXZ. But I was just going back to the point I was going to make is that the scary thing for AXZ is that even though they've been having these massive team fights, they've really not managed to shut down Aria and Gango in the last couple.
No.
And eventually, maybe CGA can turn it around because we see a Death Cap picked up by Aria now. We see 3 items and a BF sword picked up by Gango, heading towards to be what looks like a Storm Razor as well to get up to that 100% crit rate from the Aphelios as well. So, you know, with these 2 carry champions and nothing to tank them on the side of AXZ, maybe they can turn it around 2v5.
Believe that's a mortal reminder picked up for Jinx. Of course, can spread that grievous wounds across a fair amount. Big vision control lead for AXZ, which is good news for them as well. Currently set up in CGA's red side jungle. What does CGA need to do if they do want to turn this game around? Obviously, AXZ now in fairly firm control of this game. But is it kind of reliant on Aria and Gango just staying alive? Is that kind of their end goal?
I think that if Gango dies, I think the game might well end. That's the problem, really. I think that Gango needs to be so wary of his own life. And as you see here, even just here, right, you're dealing with no vision to the top side of you, no vision into your own part of the map. And if you get hit by a Thresh Hook, even though you have the cleanse, it might end up spelling your doom either way.
Fortunately for CGA, they do have some fairly tanky face checkers. Of course, that has led to some deaths. We've gone over that. But
there's been a few.
But they at least do have more options available to them. It just cannot be Gango. There is no way they can ever allow that Aphelios to die, or this game is done. And whether Aria can fly into flank, now he's got 8 stacks on this Dark Seal is worth
He's also 3 levels up of Galliardo as well. Been committing to these side lanes pretty well. Got himself a sizable 75 CS lead. Has built himself up to 3 items. But on the other side, Galliardo does have the double stopwatch, as we were talking about before. Which means that there is a lot of team fighting ability from this Galliardo, even beyond the ultimate as well. As Grendel walks up again.
He's done it again. He's getting picked off. He's going to be deleted here. He's got the Stone Blade, but he's doing a fair amount of damage. But Yoshi is now caught as well. And he's gone down. It's now a 2 for Num. And Aria
Gango's doing damage, though.
And Gango is doing damage. You're right. So is Aria. And he's trying to do much damage, but it's a 3v.
Gango!
Look at Gango in this silent. He's destroyed the Jinx. It's a 2. And the Cho'Gath is alive and so damn tanky. They can't kill him. The AD carry is gone.
He's fighting!
Gango, you monster! Look at that beautiful flash. Oh, Yana says got damage. Can he do it? But Hogler's trying to come through. But that's a GA down now for this red side. Coming in, and LeBlanc is here to clean up that Gangplank. And this is an amazing, amazing turnaround fight. How did you do that, Gango?
And what we said before is that if Gango dies, the game ends. But on the other side of that is that if Gango lives, CGA live. They come out with a huge team fight from a huge deficit. And at the end of it is Gango sitting at 8, 3, and 5 on this Aphelios.
They couldn't burst hard enough. Gango survived. Aria survived. Aria TP's back in. And this is going to be Baron secured for Crest Gaming at 33 minutes into the game. We call AXIZ as looking like they had this game, but CGA just won't quit.
Oh, and I want to see so many different replays of that fight because so much happened, and that is the nature of these late game team fights. We see Grendel trying to just play the vision game again, but he's 5 levels down on Hide of all people, for God's sake. He gets hooked, he gets frozen in place, he does have the stone play, but it just doesn't buy enough time. Yoshi similarly falls by the wayside. Aria does get chunked out pretty heavily, but does manage to get out even with all of that focus onto him. There's some pretty Superman blocking by the Cho'Gath there, flashes into the hook of Corporal, and Gango just turns on the heat. He goes in with his Q from...
fantastic knockup.
Another fantastic knockup. He flashes in, loses his GA, but does finish off Hyde with that flash in as well. There's just so much damage coming in from this huge amount of items from Gango at level 17 at the end of that fight.
1,000 shut down onto that Gangplank as well for this LeBlanc, who is now inches away from a Void Staff.
Yeah, well, it could be voice staff. Could also be a Medjai's with the 10
that's the
stack
blasting
Dark Souls.
one.
I'd like that for the style
We've
points.
been over how much we reckon CGA's carries are in fact large fans of ACDC, and I would not be surprised to see the biggest balls of them all play and going for that Medjai's. I would be excited to see it. It's 10 stacks, and actually, if you've hit this point, if you really want to tilt your opponent who is going to be feeling so nervous having just thrown a massive lead, the Medjai's pick would be it, but that's a void staff complete.
And actually, we're reaching the point now when Nap just doesn't die in the initial engage.
No, he does
this
not.
Guy
they
has
don't have
what?
to. And if Jinx dies, they cannot kill him.
He has 5,500 HP with an item and a half left to build. This guy is just absolutely stratospheric in terms of the amount of tanking he can do. Yeah. He's reached this late game stand, and obviously remember, the more HP a Cho'Gath has, the more damage he does with this chomp. If he pops his stone plate, he might well one-shot this Jinx.
Well, let's see whether the age of the dinosaurs continues, or whether an asteroid in the form of Hyde Super Mega Death Rocket can keep an eye and shut down this Cho'Gath. But Unyan is taking so much damage. This GP, strong as he is, can no longer sit in the front line like he was used to. And Arya is starting to put out some massive damage. Gario has found a good flank, and the CJ are grouped up, and Nap is off to the side, keeping people away. Knows that Lissandra Zell is keeping Corporal takes mad damage. The push continues. The Baron buff is here. They're looking to try and end this. CGA are done playing around. It was close. It was hard. We're going to see one last fight, but Gary Arya was just deleted. Disappears. Arya blows him up, and it's now a 5v4. And wonderful knockup again. That rupture is huge, and the Feral Scream is as well. And GG CGA, 20 kills to 20 kills. They turn it around.
Okay, right. So much to talk about this nail-biter of a match between AXIZ and the very, very willing to fight, willing to play competitors of AXIZ. Mass Swan, we're bringing it back to you. Wow, okay. What did you think?
I mean, I was just making a clip currently from the Gango Nap 4v2, 5v2, just... We'll carry it, guys. It's fine. I'm Nap. I will always land my Q. I will always silence everybody. And I will always knock up for you, Gango. Don't worry. And then Gango's like, so you're Superman for me? And he's like, every day, buddy. And they just destroy the team almost. Oh, it was just such a
true Japanese hero.
Just so beautiful to watch.
Yeah.
Like,
heartbreak for AXIZ, who was so close to a 2-0 day, 2-0 week. They were inches away from having carried that. Their gangplank was so strong. Gary Aru couldn't miss an ultimate. Hyde was staying alive on this Jinx, putting up mad damage, and then a flash hook starts 1 kill onto Corporal. That fight in the red side goes the wrong way. Suddenly, items are online for Gango and Arya on that LeBlanc, who only ever died the once that game.
Yeah.
And whether or not the Trundle, the Nautilus, and to a lesser extent the Cho'Gath were kind of taking damage and getting blown up, they just didn't have the consistent damage to stay alive long enough to burn through that mighty dinosaur. And Gango and Arya just put out stratospheric damage numbers.
I think Arya, while we've expected these very explosive games from him, you know, on the other side of it in this game, he showed that regardless of the counter picks thrown against him, he only died that one time. And that was like the one time in River, remember, right? At the start of the game. That was a long game where they were behind for most of it with these huge team fights, and he only died the one time. But really, for me, he did take a backseat this game for just the one time to Gango, who was just like, this guy took no... He wasn't taking no for an answer when the question was, do you want to win a team fight?
But in respect... Yeah, well, it was beautiful. But in respect to AXIZ, I mean, I really want to put my heart out to Corporal. This man...
He was so good.
Across both games, arguably was always landing the thresh hooks. Like, so many fights were just negated by him just doing things which don't seem like a big deal. But when you've got an enemy stunned with your hook for like a full second and a half, that's huge. That's a tank out of it. Or that's Arya potentially could die. He won't, because obviously you can never land a hook on Arya. But, like, I mean, we can dream, obviously.
And I think that Gadiaru also had two really good games today. The
Yes, he
LeBlanc,
did.
arguably, he was the guy that started off the snowball for them by tranking out people around the Herald fight against Rascal Jester, and then doing that throughout the game as well, just kind of jumping forward with impunity. And then the second game, he was the monster Lysandra. This guy got multiple 3-man W engages. He was really good about his ultimate usage. He did end up dying in a couple of team fights, but when you're Lysandra,
He did.
you know, that's kind of to be accepted
He
towards the
only
end of it.
died, until that last fight, he had died for one time.
Oh, had
That's
he?
true, yeah.
So he
okay.
had not died. He'd actually survived very well. He'd only died the one time until that kind of real turnaround fight by the Red Bar.
Yeah, and I think that overall his team fight impact was just huge. And I wonder if we're going to see a bit more Lysandra now. I think that we've shown that if you're going to play these slightly less engaged junglers and you're going to play something like the Rek'Sai, and I think that actually Hoglet had a decent game as well.
He did.
I think that Yoshi did fall behind into the late stage of that game as well and was finding it hard to frontline versus the team of AXIZ, which is understandable because you're against this massive front-to-back team fight with the Jinx looking to get their first kill, and that first kill is probably going to be on your squishy jungler.
Yeah, but I mean, Crest did become victorious at the end of that with an outstanding team fight. It looked like all hope was almost lost. This was definitely the last team fight, and Crest did what they've currently done best and just thrown sheer dominance out of the window and said, no, this is our time to win. We want this, and I'm sorry that you're in our way, but this is our game. And they threw the statement down. Yeah. Any closing thoughts for either of you?
I think that AXIZ need to be proud of themselves.
They
I think
really
they were really competitive. They didn't look like a last place team, and those performances, I think maybe they won't be given another couple of weeks. I think keep it up. I think that you've picked some very interesting compositions once again. I think that the unique picks, I love them. I love casting them. I love seeing them. Keep it up.
It's a game, it's a team of two halves, really, I think, for CGA. Who had great performances from Arya and Gango, particularly.
Yes.
Some slightly more suspect ones from Grendel and from Yoshi. And that turned it on towards the later stage of the game. Was no longer dying so much on the Cho'Gath, but actually they need to be a bit careful about how they're setting up vision. They're getting picked off a little bit individually, and that turned around a number of team fights until the end where they just couldn't get onto, or rather AXIZ couldn't get onto Gango and Arya anymore. But AXIZ need to be proud, and with a bottom of the league, we got the bottom two teams we kind of written off. Maybe need to be a little bit more of a threat, or considered more of a threat by us as analysts and casters, and for the rest of the team.
Yeah, I do agree with you in that. But with that in mind, we are going to see Crest Gaming act again in our next game versus V3 Esports. Oh, it's going to be a very fun game there. It's going to be very interesting to see. And Crest obviously still showing strong. We will be right back with that game right after this break.